On today's show, the Cavs win over the Utah Jazz on Monday night. Wasn't pretty, but it was exactly what this team needed. Plus, did Sam Merrill break out of his shooting slump? That's all straight ahead, plus a little bit more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, my new Substack, The Inside Shot, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure they're subscribed as well. The show is also available on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Your team every day. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's episode, of course, is sponsored by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can finish the regular season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. The Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Utah Jazz 124-113 on Monday night. It was not a pretty game for the Cavs. It was a game that probably should have been a bigger win in terms of just the final score. But the Cavs did get an opportunity on Monday because of how close this game was to work on a little bit of late game execution. Like, it's a crazy thing to say that this team hasn't been tested fairly often late in games. They've won a lot of games by 10 or more points. Obviously, they did end up doing this, but this was just their fourth game in the month of December that featured clutch time. Now, clutch time, if you're new to this, according to the NBA, is a game that is within 5 points in the final 5 minutes of regulation or goes to overtime. Obviously, that would qualify too. But this was just the fourth time in the month of December the Cavs have had that sort of game. That means they've been winning a lot of these games. And, you know, in the games that they've lost, they've not necessarily been competitive. Like the loss to Miami was not in clutch time, and that's the only game they've lost so far this month. But they haven't had the opportunity to work on late game execution and putting teams away when the game kind of slows down a little bit. I did think that they obviously did a tremendous job of that on Monday night against Utah, where they led by as many as 17 in the second half. They came out, they had a great third quarter after what I thought was a pretty lackluster first half. They had a great third quarter. Sam Merrill came alive, and I will talk plenty about Sam Merrill in the night that he had for the Cavs. But they had a really good third quarter. They opened up a 17-point lead. Utah just kind of kept chipping away. And give the Jazz credit, I thought Utah played really hard, especially for a team that doesn't have a record that's all that good. They're now 7-21 on the season, or 7-22 on the season. But the Jazz played hard, and I thought that showed up certainly in the first half. I thought that showed up in a number of different areas, like rebounding, certainly. But it did give the Cavs the opportunity to say, you know what, okay, we have found ourselves in a dogfight here. It's against a team that the Cavs are much more talented than. I think we could probably all agree. Like, if you just look at the up and down the roster, the Cavs have the more talented players. Like, that's a team that they should beat 9 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times even. They shouldn't be losing games to the Utah Jazz. But what this was them getting able to say, this team maybe has out-hustled us, maybe out-efforted us for a good chunk of the game. But it means that they got to work on the late game stuff, where it's a 1-point game, I believe, with under 5 minutes left. I believe it was around 3 minutes left. Lauri Markkanen hit a pair of free throws that cut it to a 1-point lead for the Cavs. And it meant that they got to see a little bit what this late game offense looks like. And there were a couple of things that really stood out to me. One, the fact that Jared Allen was not on the floor for that. We have seen the Cavs in a few of their close games throughout this season close with Evan Mobley playing center. And they did that again on Monday night. It is the thing that unlocks, I think, the best version of the Cavs. And the lineup they closed with was Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Kessler, George Niang, and then Evan Mobley at center. That's a really good lineup for them. George Niang has played really well this year. I think he's had a really good year for the Cavs so far. I do think ultimately in games that the Cavs close with Evan Mobley at center, you will probably see Max Strus playing the floor. Like that is a lineup that I think can be really, really dynamic for the Cavs. I think we saw it for 16 seconds at the end of the third quarter, maybe end of the first half. But I do think that would be an opportunity to see those four guys plus Evan Mobley. We didn't see it because Max is still on a minutes restriction. He played right around 21 minutes, maybe close to 22 minutes on Monday night. But I do think that could be an opportunity for him to fit in late in games. So that is one thing to keep an eye on. But I do think it's important that when Evan Mobley's at center, the Cavs are at their best. And I think it's something the Cavs realize. Kenny Atkinson was asked about it after the game. It was just, they needed more space. And when both Jarrett and Evan were on the floor, I don't think the Cavs played as well on Monday night, because part of it was, one, they didn't have the space they needed offensively, but two, they also weren't grabbing rebounds the way that you would think a lineup with two bigs did. And give Utah credit there. I thought they played really hard. I thought they hit the boards awesome. Walker Kessler, I think, had 16 rebounds. 8 of them were offensive. 8 of them were defensive. That's really impressive. And I thought he outplayed Jarrett Allen. Like, I did not think Jarrett Allen had a very good night on Monday night, but the Cavs have such the luxury of depth that if somebody like a Jarrett Allen doesn't have a very good game, they're able to pivot and find other avenues to get the job done. And that is exactly what Kenny Atkinson and his staff did against the Utah Jazz. They turned in a different direction. We've seen them do that a number of times this year, and it seemingly always works. Like, Kenny Atkinson this year just seems to always be pressing the right buttons at all times. And Monday night was no different there. He closed the game the way this game needed to be closed. So I do think that makes it obvious that when things do get stressful, because at some point this team will encounter more adversity than I guess the old LeBron line comes to mind when I watched this game, because even when Utah cut it to one point, like, there was never a moment where I looked at them and go, oh man, the Jazz might steal this one. I never thought that the Cavs were going to lose this game. But there's the old LeBron line where he was asked about adverse situations. I think it was when the Cavs played the Raptors, maybe back in 2016, when they won that playoff series, Eastern Conference Finals. They won in 6 games. And he was asked about fighting through adversity. And he said something along the lines of, I've been in a lot of adverse situations in my career. I didn't consider that to be one of them. That's sort of the way I looked at this Jazz game. Like, it was kind of fake adversity for this team, where they will be in some adverse situations later this season, maybe even on this upcoming road trip, certainly when they get to the postseason. I don't think that this was one of them, but it was one that was close enough to being an adverse situation to where they could practice what that real adverse situation is going to be like. So I did think it was a really good thing that the Cavs got to play in clutch time in this game. I thought that they looked really good in clutch time in this game too. Like, that is something that it's when you get an opportunity to see how they're going to perform in these types of settings, it's absolutely worth considering what things look like. So clutch time was 4.3 minutes, according to NBA.com. And the Cavs played really well during it. They outscored the Jazz by 4 points during that clutch time. It was really, really good. The execution I thought was awesome. I thought Donovan Mitchell was really good down the stretch. I thought George Niang was really good down the stretch. I thought Darius Garland was really good down the stretch. Like, he had the one play where, and the Jazz were switching just about everything defensively, which is another reason why the Cavs wanted to go a little bit smaller. And he got Walker Kessler on him a number of times. And Walker played a good game, certainly on the glass. But when he got switched out onto Darius Garland, I mean, the one time he got turned around, it won't be a highlight because Darius smoked the layup, but he struggled on an island, as you would expect someone of his stature to look trying to defend Darius Garland. And there was one where he kind of tried to put Walker on skates. I thought it was maybe the best defense Walker played on him all night, but then old friend Colin Sexton fell asleep watching the ball in the weak corner, and George Niang snuck past him, and Darius found him for a wide open layup. And like, a play like that, it speaks to this team's maturity and this team's willingness to make the right play over and over. Because I do think, especially with how good of a year Darius Garland has had, I think it would have been really easy for him in that moment to say, no, I'm going to take us home. I've got a mismatch. I'm going to go out. I'm going to go get a bucket because I'm Darius Garland and that's what I can do. Instead, he made the right play. And I think that shows a sign of maturity. I think that shows a sign of how this team operates the right way. I just think all of that is kind of as good of a thing as you can ask for with this Cavs team. Again, was this the prettiest win for the Cavs? No. Are you going to remember this win at the end of the season? Maybe. I don't know. Probably not. Like, this is just going to fade into another victory for the Cavs. But I do think it was really good practice for them to get some clutch play in, for them to make decisions when, again, I don't think it was a really super adverse situation against Utah, but it was one that at least resembled adversity, and the Cavs thrived in it. Another guy who thrived on Monday night, that's Sam Merrill. I talked about him yesterday in a shooting slump. Let's talk about breaking out of that slump next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 per month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. That's robinhood.com/gold, ROBINHOOD.com/GOLD. Terms do apply for product specific disclosures. Visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said at the top of the show, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Sam Merrill, I talked about him yesterday about how I wasn't concerned yet about the shooting slump that he had been in. And before Monday night's game, he had been shooting 28% from three since returning from that ankle injury. He missed 4 games in the month of November, came back for that big game against Boston that ended the Cavs' season opening winning streak. And since that game, he had not been shooting the basketball very well. He entered Monday night questionable with a quad contusion, and he played through it, got the start because Dean Wade did not play with a sore knee. And Sam had the best game of his career. I don't know if it's because he played Utah. You know, you think back to last year, Sam had a really good game against the Jazz then. He's a guy that's from Utah. It's the team he grew up cheering for. I don't know if there's a connection, or I don't know if this was just a really good shooter, which, of course, I believe Sam to be, breaking out of a shooting slump. But he finished the night with 20 points, was 6 of 11 from 3. That's the most threes he's made in a game this year. A couple of them I do think were a little rushed, and I think part of Sam's shooting slump is that he takes some tough shots, and that's who Sam Merrill is going to be. He's not always going to have a ton of space, but he's a guy that's very confident in his shot, and he should be because he is one of, just like technically speaking, I think he's one of the best shooters in basketball. Like, he just his jumper, he's got some of the best form in the sport. So I never got the feeling that this was something to be super concerned about, because you look at the work he puts in, which I know that I certainly see more because I'm around after practices. I'm around after shoot arounds. I see everything behind the scenes, not everything behind the scenes, but I see things behind the scenes that kind of give me a clue as far as who's working hard on this stuff and who's not. And Sam Merrill is a guy that is always working really, really hard on this stuff, maybe to a certain point to his detriment. He spoke after the game on Monday about how he sort of eased off a little bit last week because he was working a little too hard. And the sports science guys on the staff of the Cavs said, you were doing so much of this last year and you weren't playing as much as you're playing right now. So he decided that, okay, it's time to ease up a little bit. And I don't know that there's any correlation between him easing up a little bit and then going out and burying 6 threes. But I do know that for someone like Sam, this was a great night to have. He needed to have this type of night, and I don't think he was ever getting short on confidence, but I do think he was getting frustrated that he wasn't making shots. And some of it's tough luck. Some of it was sometimes shots don't fall. And I think that he needed to see the ball go through the basket a few times. He had a wide open one early in the game that he missed from the left wing, but after that, he was really, really good. And I think it was a really good sign for the Cavs because this version of Sam Merrill, and he's not going to shoot over 50% from three every night. That's a foolish thing to think. But this version of Sam Merrill that can go out and hit 6 threes creates so much space. Like someone, I believe it was on Blue Sky, someone posted that because I did an AMA, and I'll talk about the delay before the game coming up in segment number 3 today. But I did an AMA during that half hour before tip-off tonight that we were not anticipate having. And someone asked me the difference between Ty Jerome and Sam Merrill. And my instant response was, okay, well, Ty, who's had a great season, and I thought had an okay night against the Jazz, doesn't have the same gravity Sam has. Even when Sam is not making shots, defenders are still tightly contesting him. They're still defending him closely. And that's happening without the basketball in his hands, where Ty kind of needs the basketball in his hands to make that stuff work, where Sam doesn't. And that's a big difference. But a night like tonight, even if it doesn't happen every single night, is only going to reinforce that to defenses. Like as now the Cavs get set to go out west, and they've got Denver, and they've got Golden State, and they've got the Lakers, and they've got Dallas. Is Sam Merrill going to be at the top of the scouting report for those guys? No, but it's going to be noted that, hey, this guy just made 6 threes in the game against Utah on Monday. And that is an important thing because when he's on the floor, there's going to be more space for everybody else to operate with. So I thought it was a really good thing Sam Merrill had the night that he had. I thought that the best player for the Cavs probably was Darius Garland on Monday night. He finished the night 23 points, which was a team high, 8 of 14 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3, had 8 assists, only had 2 turnovers, was a plus 21 on the floor. I don't think Darius Garland is getting the credit that he deserves. I do think that he is somebody that absolutely deserves to be an all-star. I think that the game is coming to him so much easier than it was last year. And there are a lot of things that go into that we don't need to rehash, but he looks like an all-star point guard again. And I think that has been one of the biggest things, one of the brightest spots for this Cavs team is just how good he's been. He really stood out to me on Monday night against Utah. When he got Walker Kessler switched onto him out on the perimeter, he was just able to go to work. And with the exception of the last one, which was an awesome pass and probably the best pass he threw on Monday night, he was able to get to wherever he wanted to. I thought Evan Mobley was really, really good against Utah too. Had another poster with his left hand. This one was over Walker Kessler. He loves dunking with his left hand. I don't think it was as good as his dunk over Andre Drummond on Saturday night when they played Philly, but this was a really good one. Also important, he hit 3 threes again. He took 5 threes again. We're starting to see him let it fly from deep more frequently, and he's a good enough shooter that they're going to fall, especially from the corners. I've been really impressed with how he shot the ball. He also had 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks. Like this guy just does everything. He is absolutely 100% taking the leap. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's been awesome. He too, I think, really does deserve to be an all-star. I don't know if the Cavs are going to get 3 all-stars, but man, right now you can't look at any of those 3 between Evan, Darius, and Donovan and say that guy doesn't deserve to be an all-star, because Evan Mobley, again, if Darius Garland wasn't the best player on the floor, Evan Mobley was. And on a team that has Donovan Mitchell, I don't think that's something that is said lightly, because Donovan, I thought, had an okay game, had 22 points, did have 7 assists, 7 of 15 from the floor. Not Donovan's best game, not Donovan's worst game. It was just a middle-of-the-road Donovan Mitchell game. But the Cavs don't need him to go out and be great, because I've already talked about 3 guys that went for 20-plus points before I even got to Donovan Mitchell. And I think that's kind of the best sign about this Cavs team is that, you would not have come into Monday night expecting Sam Merrill to go off for 20 points. No one would have expected that. But as you watch it happen, are you really stunned by it? You might be surprised because of the shooting slump he was in, But when Sam Merrill has it going on, he's capable of this. They've got so many guys on this roster. I mean, you just look up and down the roster. Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Sam Merrill, Jarrett Allen, Karis LeVert, Ty Jerome, Max Strus. All those guys are capable of scoring 20-plus points any single night. George Niang maybe be put in that list too. I thought he gave them some good minutes, particularly in the fourth quarter. This Cavs team, the depth is one of the best parts about it. And I think that was on display because, yeah, the stars played well. Evan Mobley was awesome. Darius Garland was terrific. Donovan Mitchell was okay. But the depth, Sam Merrill, all that stuff matters. And in getting back to this not being an adverse situation, I will say, if Sam Merrill doesn't have the night Sam Merrill has, the Cavs might lose this game. So they were able to get contributions from guys that maybe other teams aren't expecting to see perform. Sam Merrill was that. Evan Mobley's not that anymore, though, because he's taken the leap. He deserves to be an all-star. He was awesome again Monday. He's been awesome just about every single night. So this game got off to a weird start. I'll tell you exactly what I think happened next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is, of course, America's #1 sportsbook, and the NFL playoffs are almost here, and it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a win. Personally, I like the anytime touchdown. That's one of my go-tos when I'm on FanDuel every Sunday. I like trying to predict who's going to find the end zone. If you watched the Monday night game last night, no one for the New Orleans Saints found the end zone. So I hope that was not one of your picks. But that I think is one of the most exciting things that FanDuel has to offer. But that's not it. That's not only it, I should say. They've got so much more because they've also got, how many points each team's going to score. Obviously, spreads, money line. So many other things. FanDuel has it all. They've got NBA, they've got NFL, they've got everything you could possibly ask for. I do think there's some value if you want to go to the season awards over in the NBA. Karis LeVert is kind of far down there as far as sixth man of the year goes. He's plus 6,000. Is he going to win? I don't know. But I do know that there are not very many guys coming off the bench in the NBA that are as impactful as Karis LeVert is on a regular basis. Maybe, just maybe, that's worth thinking about. So what you need to do, visit FanDuel.com today. That's FanDuel.com to join today. FanDuel.com for your chance to win $250 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. If you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Also need to remind you that Locked On Cavs does have a newsletter introducing the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter. It's your one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Cavs newsletter. So typically, one of the things that I don't always do this, I should probably be a little bit more consistent doing it. I will tweet out or post on Blue Sky if you follow me there what time the game is scheduled to start for the Cavs. There is always a rundown in the media room with timing. Like it says exactly what time the national anthem is going to be played. It says exactly what time the visiting team is going to be announced. It says when the lights are going to go out for the Cavs announcements, for their starting lineup, I should say. And then it says what time tip-off is going to be. Like I thought it was interesting when the Raptors were in town a little while ago. The game started a minute and a half late. Why? Because Canada. Because they have to play Canada's national anthem before that game too, in addition to the national anthem of the United States. So 7:10 is normally the tip-off time. When a game starts at 7, it's really 7:10 for the most part. Sometimes it'll be earlier, but for the most part, it's 7:10. This game tipped off at 7:45. Why was that? Because one of the baskets was messed up. Yes, they had to replace a basket, an entire basket, stanchion, all of it. They had to wheel a new one in. They had to wheel the old one out. It was the one by the Cavs bench. So what do we think happened there? I don't have this confirmed, But I do think it's something that a lot of the guys in the Cavs locker room were saying, something that Kenny Atkinson, it was his theory too, something that we share. And after the national anthem, at the conclusion of the national anthem, Tristan Thompson, longtime Cavs center, typically will jump up on the rim and hang on it for a minute. Not like 60 seconds, but a little bit. And he did that again on Monday night. He does it before every game. And the theory going around is that that is what screwed up the basket. And that is what cost us 35 minutes between scheduled tip-off time and actual tip-off time. Now, is that exactly what happened? I don't know. Maybe it was screwed up as the Jazz were warming up and no one noticed it until they went out and said, whoa, that basket doesn't look right. But I do know it was a long process. I thought it was cool the way some of the guys on the Cavs interacted with fans during it, like Evan Mobley and Darius Garland were both throwing passes into the stands and basically playing catch with fans. I thought that was a really cool touch. I asked Kenny Atkinson what he did. He said he went back into his office and watched film, which kind of just, I think that just kind of says everything you need to know about Kenny Atkinson. Like, the guy loves basketball. He is a basketball sicko. That's kind of the best way to, and I say that like in the nicest way possible. He loves basketball and he just wants to always be grinding film, it feels like. And that's how he chose to do it. But it was a really weird situation. Jarrett Allen, you may have seen the clip floating around social media. Jarrett Allen hit a behind the back or like an over the head half court shot with his back to the basket. That was really cool. That was kind of the highlight of Jarrett Allen's night, truthfully, because I don't think he played all that well. I thought Walker Kessler certainly outplayed him, but this was not it was weird. It was weird to have to wait around for 35 minutes. The players stayed on the court for the most part. It was a strange situation. It's not the first time I've been part of a game like this. Once upon a time, I used to cover the Minnesota Timberwolves, and there was a game where this happened, and it was like an hour delay, and it's not fun for anybody. But it happened, and the Cavs were able to still, maybe that contributed to a little bit of the sloppy first quarter, because that first quarter was not the best basketball that we saw. The Cavs didn't get off to the best start. I don't think the Jazz necessarily got off to the best start either. Maybe that contributed to it. I don't know. I certainly hope it doesn't happen again, because sitting around and waiting that long for a basketball game to tip off, not the best part of the night, but the Cavs found a way through it, and they get a 124 again to 113 win over the Utah Jazz. They are now 26-4 on the season. It is the best start in team history through 30 games. The last team, I believe, to start this well was the 2008-2009 Cavs. And we know how that season ended, where that Cavs team won 66 games. It was the best team in franchise history in terms of the regular season. Obviously, in the postseason, it didn't go as I think every Cavs fan would have hoped, because they ended up losing that year in the conference finals against the Orlando Magic, because so many guys for Orlando, just everyone turned into prime Klay Thompson on that team. But that Cavs team was really, really good. They started 26-4 as well. They did lose their next game to drop to 26-5. We'll see if the Cavs fall victim to that. They play next Friday night in Denver. It's the start of a 4-game West Coast trip. They've got Denver, they've got Golden State, they've got the Lakers, they've got the Dallas Mavericks. All 4 of these teams are solid to really good. I think Dallas is the best of the bunch right now. How the Cavs compare to these teams, I'm very interested in finding out. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on tomorrow's Locked On Cavs talking about that. But if you've got any questions for me, with it being Christmas, I'm in a giving mood. I'd love to give out some answers. So drop questions in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening wherever you get your podcast. You can always tweet at me at Real D Cunningham or at Danny Cunningham on Blue Sky if you want to hit me up there. But I will carve out some time for that if that's what we want to do on a Christmas edition of Locked On Cavs. So if you're not into that, Merry Christmas. Have a great Christmas Eve, a great Christmas Day on Wednesday. I will be here all week talking Cavs basketball right here on Locked On Cavs. So once again, thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure they're subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube again, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I'll be back tomorrow